The existential crisis of illegal mining Galamsey is still on our hands. The country, Ghana, with the Ghana Armed Forces, Ghana Police Service, all our security agencies, national security, we do not still seem to have an idea how we can tackle what some have described as the drug dealing of Ghana. Some have sought to liken it to the drug dealing in the North American hemisphere. We do not seem to have a way to keep the lid on illegal mining. Illegal miners are getting emboldened. They are destroying almost every part of our forest reserves, and now they are armed to the teeth. Only 2 weeks ago, a forestry commission official was nearly killed by illegal miners who wielded guns and cutlasses in one of the forest reserves in the country. What exactly will it take to deal with the Galamsey menace? And what is the strategy of the new NDC government, given that they made a big deal out of that in opposition? In fact, at some point, Sam George, who is currently the communications minister, did say that if the president wanted to deal with Galamsey, he could do so in a week. There's a new government, there's a new president. What exactly is the strategy? We do not seem to have heard from the government on what exactly they are going to do about this. But the interior minister is already proposing some stories in terms of how he believes this illegal mining menace can be dealt with.
So simply, you started every Mr. Makacha DP simply, you this is police pay Galamsey area, Mama order say you mean flow.
Terrorists. That's how we see them. They are terrorists.
When we arrest any foreigner, we are not interested in prosecuting them. Our first option is to take them back to their country.
So the lands minister says he sees illegal miners, or the government sees them as terrorists. And then the interior minister says, well, if we catch any illegal miner who is not a Ghanaian, we are not interested in prosecuting them and putting them behind jail in Ghana. I heard that on Top Story. Government's interest is to put them away back to their country. We connect on these vex matters right after these messages.
Hey, why the big smile this evening?
I just realized all the Momo transactions I did today had zero charges. The money I sent to you for the market, no charges. The money I sent to Ajua in school, no charges. Even paying my 10 libras, no charges. Every single payment I made, no charges.
See, that's why downloading my Momo app was a great move. Every weekend, transactions on the app comes with zero charges. Send money, make payments, all for free.
Don't miss out. Download my Momo app today and enjoy zero charges on all your Momo transactions every weekend. Just Momo it. Terms and conditions apply. MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom. And my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Pepsodent, cavity protection.
For 10 times stronger.
This advert is FDA approved. MNC Group is a leading investment holding company with expertise in mineral and food commodities trading, precious metal refinery, real estate development, logistics, and energy. With individually registered companies, our headquarters is located in Accra, Ghana, with our operational offices in Dubai, UAE, Hong Kong, and Guangzhou in China, Johannesburg, South Africa, Virginia, United States of America, and Milan, Italy. We connect business markets and drive growth. Trust us to maximize value in every deal.
Call us on 030-255-1917 or 030-255-1918. Send us an email at mncgroup@mncgroupgh.com.
MNC Group, totally reliant.
The Accra Healing and Deliverance Crusade is here.
God takes his people and put them in charge.
Ministering Dr. Pastor Paul and Becky Eninche, all the way from Glory Dome in Abuja, Nigeria. Theme, Dominion. Date 10th and 11th of April 2025. Venue, El-Wax Sports Stadium. Song ministration, Emoji, Ankalato, Kofi Boham, Prophet Okebe, Prosper Ochimana, and Minister Mark Frank. Also happening live is the Workforce and Ministers Conference, happening at the Accra International Conference Center at 9 a.m. on the 11th of April. Free shuttles to the venue will be available. For more information, call 0257 765 546. The Accra Healing and Deliverance Crusade. Be there.
Welcome back to Ghana Connect right here on Joy 99.7 FM. My name to deal decisively with illegal miners and weed them out of our forest reserves. And in fact, some of them are mining in homes. I saw a video today on social media in one of the communities, I think Osino. And there's just a compound house on top of the illegal mining pit that the miners were digging. But before that, listen to this.
Chief Justice, I'm very happy that Attorney General is taking the necessary step to try to reconstitute and bring back dedicated courts in dealing with these terrorists. And that's how we see them. They are terrorists.
Think about the future children. Mankind wicked and wise. Destroying generational. Anyway. Cyanide and mercury in the water. They let this poisoning the water. The farmlands are chemicalized and I don't know what to do. Yeah, and this is because of illegal mining and cocoa production declining.
I want to take this opportunity to sound a note of caution to those involved in this illegal mining enterprise and their faceless collaborators hiding behind political polarization and influence, that any attempts to make calls and overtures to intercede for their notorious culprits will not succeed.
Deforestation and rising of violent crime every day. Well, many men shall die because of the greedy of another man, yeah. Worldwide, many men shall die because of the greedy of another man, yeah. Nations.
Sisi kura ya starting every. Mizo makacha IGP say, Sebio, yenye ya adwin say best sasa no. Police pay biya wo galamsey area biya no. Mama order say yenyi omi na inflo.
I have informed the IGP that every police commander in Galamsey affected areas should be replaced with new ones. I am not saying they are complicit, but they have been there for too long without
You see, what now watch it? When you will because what now want to be fighting Galamsey.
Many men shall die because of the greedy of another man, yeah. Many men shall die.
Well, the illegal mining menace, a lot of people will say it's a matter of greed. But before I tell you about the very interesting minds that are connecting with me on this matter, please, for those of you listening to us in the house, or wherever you may be in your car, please do send us a WhatsApp message 055 1111 997 055 1111 997. Illegal mining affects every one of us because of the perverse nature of it. It destroys our water bodies. You can't get water pumped to your home. You must care. You should not think, Accra, there's no illegal mining going on here in Accra. Whatever is going on in Osino, in Kumasi, in some village somewhere, affects you. Connecting with us on this conversation, Oliver Bakavomao, he's an activist. He's been leading several illegal mining protests, and in the last few weeks has been speaking a lot about this conversation following some of the work that our colleague Erastus Danko has been doing. Oliver, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to join the conversation.
Great. Carla Olympio is a lawyer, an activist, and it's always a delight to have Carla back on the show. Carla, it's good to have you back.
It's great to be back. It's good to be here.
And then right in the studio with me, Christiana Achampon, a recent graduate of KNUST Obuasi campus. That means she's seen illegal mining firsthand, because Obuasi, there's mining there, but there's a lot of illegal mining also. She was the SRC Women's Commissioner for the KNUST Obuasi campus, and also a project lead for Inspire My Story Foundation. She's in the studio with me. Christiana, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you so much, Tuku.
Great. And then Kelvin Jima is also a dynamic professional with experience in sociological research, social-legal research, education, governance, and political strategy. And Kelvin holds a Master of Law in International Human Rights Law from the Brunel University in London, and an ongoing doctoral student. Kelvin, it's good to have you connect with us.
Yes, Kwaku. It's a pleasure to be on here with you guys. Thank you for having me.
So as always, again, 055 111197. Please do send us a WhatsApp message. Let me start with you, Oliver Bakavomao. You've hit the streets. You've been arrested. You've stayed in police cells because of your protest against illegal mining. A new government has been in power for nearly 4 months now. What have you made about the strategy that they have had in terms of dealing with this fight?
I mean, it is strange to be witnessing some of the steps that have been taken in the beginning, because it's almost as if the NDC was discovering what the problem was, when in fact this is something which they should be intimately be aware of from when they were first in government and how it has worsened over the period, such that in the initial steps and a lot of the conversation that was going on, it almost seemed like the government was taking a bullish attitude to it, like, well, maybe we can massage this, and a lot of the campaigners would not see that we are backtracking on some of the promises we have made. Maybe the problem can be managed in a different way, if only we put in place a gold board mechanism. That it is left a lot of environmentalists and a lot of the people who have been joining the conversation confused as to the government's own commitment to the conversation. Now, I'm saying that in the beginning steps because you started with the minister's comments, where he's now talking about terrorism and stuff. Now, that is language which I'm hoping that is not using only for hyperbole, because it places a huge responsibility in terms of the government machinery and how we deploy it. So I think that in the beginning, and perhaps I'm going to reserve my initial comments to that in the beginning, the sense of seriousness wasn't there, and we weren't seeing that happen. I think that the government did not sufficiently anticipate and understand the way in which there were so many watchers who are interested in this issue, and that it cuts beyond partisan lines. This is not a partisan issue at all. And so I at least hope that there's an awakening that is happening, and that awakening must be reflected then in some of the initial steps. For instance, this horrendous decision to amend LI 2462 rather than repeal it, that there's a backtracking on these things. If not, I think the government is going to be in for a rude awakening.
Carla, do you agree with Oliver Bakavoma when he says that he hasn't seen that seriousness in the first 4 months of the government in terms of fighting illegal? Of course, there's been speeches here and there, the president himself saying stuff, but in terms of going out there to the forest and really doing something that will get people to say, listen, this government is in for a change in terms of what they have done even in other sectors. Look at what they've done with the taxes and all that. You get the same sense?
Well, I don't know. I think it's difficult to say, at least from where I sit, right? I mean, it's the illegal mining menace is such a complicated and difficult issue that I'm not sure how much they could have done in 4 months. Now, I 100% agree with the minister describing it as terrorism, because to be honest, every time I hear a report or see anything about illegal mining, I find it very horrifying. As we say in Ghana, "Imusum shami," right? Because it is so frightening. And I hope that what the minister said about seeing it as a form of terrorism is true. Now, the minister has also said, now I'm not on the ground, I'm not in a position to know, that they have reclaimed, did he say 7 out of 9 forest reserves
Yes, 7 out of 9.
were damaged? Well, that's what he said. And I'm still for giving the government the benefit of the doubt, right? They've just taken over the reins of power. They had to re-acclimatize themselves, with the security forces and stuff. So I'm still in the position that I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Yes, they've repealed laws, but it's much easier to repeal a law than it is to solve the problem of illegal mining. But I do think that, the government should be aware that Ghanaians are very, very, very concerned about this menace. The thing is, unfortunately, it's not all Ghanaians. There are a lot of Ghanaians who are also benefiting from it, right? So that's the issue. So I think I'm giving the government the benefits of the doubt. I'm believing in what they're saying.
Right. Benefits of the doubt for the new government in terms of what exactly it is that they're going to do. Kelvin, before I come back here in studio, it's 4 months. There are those who said that, listen, we should cut the government some slack. And that 4 months is not enough time to do anything decisive on a problem that has been going on for decades. And in fact, in the last 8 years, so many people agree that illegal mining did worsen. So 4 months, enough or not enough? Kala has made that point. Where do you stand?
I think 4 months is definitely not enough to completely deal with the problem. So I tend to somewhat agree with Oliver on his point where he says they may not necessarily appreciate the full extent of Galamsey. So they are now coming to terms with it. What, however, I think they may have failed to do, and which Ghanaians may be expecting at this point, is a clear roadmap as to how we are going to deal with this thing. At this point, it feels like pockets of actions being taken, and it feels like a bit of confusion, a little bit, as to how to really deal with this Galamsey menace. Because at one point, you see that, the army is going in, water guards are coming in, the law we say we want to repeal, we don't want to do that anymore, we want to amend. You're not quite sure as to where the whole thing is leading. What is the plan? And how is government really going to deal with this holistically? Because as Clara said, this is a very, very complex web. So we need to understand really what government wants to do from a broader perspective. We don't have that as Ghanaians, and then that makes us worried. What is the government trying to do?
Exactly. And let me come back here in the studio. Christiana, you and I had a brief conversation about this earlier on, and you had a very interesting prognosis about the illegal mining situation, about how we all of us, including the government, obviously, do not seem to go after the big dogs, the big guys who are fueling the illegal mining menace. I wonder where all of that sits in this conversation, given all that Oliver, Carla, and Kelvin have just stated.
Okay, so Kwaku, thank you very much. I think there's a lot for the government to do. With this illegal mining issue, government has channeled his energy towards the small guys in the illegal mining thing, whilst the big guys are there. So earlier on, I gave you an example of a snake, you trying to kill the snake. So if you get a snake and you just cut the tail and leave the head, the snake will still come back to you. So with these big guys who are fueling the illegal mining, pushing money into it, if government has no strategic plan to take these guys out, I personally don't think the government is ready to fight illegal mining. I don't think so.
You haven't gotten the sense from the past government and now that there's that.
At all. Because if government really want to fight this, they will really go for the big guys. Because going for the big guys will solve this problem completely.
They are the ones bringing in the excavators and all that. Oliver, I am an eternal optimist. I believe almost everything is possible that it could work. The only time that I'm such a pessimist is when it comes to illegal mining. I seem to think we just cannot win. I mean, look, you made the point about LI 2462 and a drive now to amend the part that deals with the president giving licenses for persons to mine in forest reserves. If you repeal that, obviously then you don't give new permits for forest reserves. What happens to the thousands of permits that have already been issued and people who are actively mining in these forest reserves? What again happens to the entire act that many have said and CSOs activists have said actually fuels illegal mining? I wonder where you stand on that, and my pessimism that we probably will never win this.
So, I mean, I share your pessimism, and I think that anybody who's not pessimistic of the Fourth Republic and Ghanaian politicians must be living in cuckoo land. So that pessimism is well placed. And in fact, for a lot of us who are speaking and in the activism space, it is driven by our consistent fear of seeing governments upon governments continue to disappoint. But this is one thing I believe, in terms of all the problems we talk about, that we cannot afford to pussyfoot around. It's not something that we can afford to fail on. So even if we are inherently pessimistic or we are afraid that government might fail or not take this serious, we have an obligation to step up and put the pressure on, because the alternative is too scary. Now, on the LI 2462, the fact of the government choosing to amend, and in fact, the portion they are choosing to amend is that the previous governments even went as far as allowing the president on his own discretion to even allow mining companies directly from Julobi House to approve mining licenses or to approve environmental permits from the presidency. That in itself was obnoxious enough. That's all they are taking out, meaning that the entirety of the framework that normalizes the possibility of mining in forest reserves remains intact. That in itself shows a failure to comprehend why we need to avoid at all costs mining in forest reserves from which all our water bodies draw their source from. So the fact of keeping it alive is an indication that the government does not sufficiently appreciate the risk involved here to close off forest reserves to mining completely. But the law, it doesn't solve the problem, right? Like, it also means that you have to be able to do the work, not only, I mean, in terms of cancelling existing licenses, of course, it's inherent in the idea, but also that the persons who are doing this in the forest reserves that do not even hold licenses, and then you have to be able to do that. But if you're not even contemplating to shut the door, then you can't go about chasing the criminals who have entered in there, whether they came in through the right means or other. That's exactly where the point is.
Carla, this is legislation issues. The government plans to repeal LI 2462, the part that has to do with amend it, not actually repeal, and all that. In terms of the legalese of this, the legal aspect of it, and many people say this is a beautiful country of laws. We seem to have a law to deal with everything. Do you think that we have fashioned out laws that are enough deterrent to deal with these matters? And this ties into the minister's suggestion that this is terrorism. And if people are engaged in terrorism, the punishment for that is severe. Do you get a sense that the legal regime to deal with illegal mining is there? And again, the Interior Minister talks about getting special courts again to try offenders of the illegal mining.
Yeah, I think that LI 2462 should be abolished. I think that law is an abomination, an absolute abomination. I have worked in the gold mining industry, right? I don't know how many people have, but Ghana, we've been mining gold for centuries. Where are our mining majors? By now, we should have huge mining companies that are mining our own gold, and then we would be getting more back. Obuasi should be like Johannesburg, right? We should be sending mining companies out into the world. So my point is that the problem may not be mining per se. It is the way we are managing mining. Because there are people who are making serious money from Galamsey, but it's going into their pockets. It's not building the nation. So, Ghanaians as a whole should be much more upset about this because, compare mining to what we see going on or what we saw going on in previous years in Colombia with the drug trade or with Mexico. Because if you have illegal miners controlling huge swathes of your country, those are criminals. Those are criminals that the politicians are afraid of or they're dancing around. The security forces apparently are also afraid of, and we're all at their mercy. I don't think it's a lack of laws, to be honest with you. I do not think it's a lack of laws. I don't think we lack laws to deal with this, aside from the fact that it's just illegal and it's a crime. And to be poisoning water bodies and to be destroying, forests is a crime. And the last thing we needed was an ally to legalize the destruction of our forests, So, I don't think the problem is a lack of laws. I do think the LI is a highly problematic law that needs to be abolished forthwith. It should not be there. But no, it is absolutely terrorism. I mean, it's like the resource curse. Look what's going on in DRC now. I know there's all kinds of issues about ethnicity, but a lot of it is to do with resources. Look what happened in Sierra Leone. Look what happens in the Niger Delta. We cannot take this for granted. Apart from the destruction of our environment, it is a massive security threat. Ghana has been a haven of peace in West Africa. And if we allow this to continue, I really fear that it may not continue that way.
Oliver, let me come back to you. I mean, I agree with Carla perfectly that this is not a law problem because we seem to have a lot of laws. But then what is the responsibility of the middle class in all this? And I don't know if you would accept the tag of being in the middle class, but you are out there. You are on the grounds. You are organizing protests to drive home to drum home the demand for something to be done. But there are so many in the middle class who prefer to talk about very lofty political stuff on social media. They will not join protests. They will not speak out in support. How do you diagnose the problem in terms of our ability to rally the entirety of the citizenry to see through this galamsey for the big issue that it truly is to deal with it?
Well, let's be frank in terms of Ghanaian middle class generally. What issue have we been able to mobilize together and collectively on and say we are drawing the line in the sand on?
Perhaps Dumso must stop under John Mahama.
I mean, let's be honest. The number of people who joined Dumso must stop, even for something that for centuries, for a long time was disturbing the entirety of the country, was barely, 0.2% of Accra, not of the country. We didn't see this repeat across the entirety of the country. We didn't see this in other regions and things like that. And in fact, Accra is not Ghana, right? Accra level mobilization is not reflective of the temperature of the entirety of the republic. So the scale, and I agree that the scale of what we are dealing with and the response that we ought to have to it has been absent in this particular conversation, but it's also the story of our lives under the Fourth Republic. There's so many people within the same middle class that see our activism, our concern and our demands and things we're talking about as though these people just want attention for themselves. There are people within the middle class who were cheering our arrest and the fact that we were thrown in jail and cells. There are people who undermine and minimize its importance in being able to hold the Republic to account. So that in itself is not new. That is what we are as a people. Our political consciousness is people who hoard for themselves and keep for themselves. Public interest work, doing more than just thinking about one's individual self, has not been very present in terms of our body politic and the ways we socialize and mobilize. In fact, those who steal from us are the people we valorize. We go into spaces where people, would rather go to birthday parties and, all kinds of things organized by the political class. Because, of course, association with those people is status, rather than those who are calling for some change. So there's a whole social dynamic into the ways in which the things we valorize and the way in which we socialize and the things that we do, that speaks to whether or not there's an agency and we're able to mobilize around things which are in the public interest. So it's not that I'm saying specific, but I understand why on this particular issue, it is even more frustrating considering what the risks are. In fact, whether we are buying Kinky by the roadside or whether it is being sent to us in Kempinski, it doesn't matter because nobody is preparing Kinky with imported water. So the problems, we are all going to suffer it. As to whether or not there's a sense of belief that, well, it doesn't touch me, I don't feel the sense, I don't see the poverty at my doorstep, It is not my social reality. It is going to live with that. Outside of that middle class, unfortunately for us, we'll have to continue to bank on the patience, the resolve of working class people who have consistently showed up at protests, who have consistently continued to hold our democracy accountable. They are the ones we must be grateful to. But I will not continue to wait for the middle class. It's not going to happen. But we continue to tend to those communities, the poorer communities, who unfortunately carry the burden of trying to draw public attention and sympathies around some of these issues. That's what perhaps we continue to count on, I say.
Right. I mean, Kelvin, the last time Erastus Asare Donko, a colleague, did a report about illegal miners who had actually dammed a river. They had blocked it, dammed it, used it for illegal mining, and allowed just a small part to flow so that the color will seem really nice. People will think, oh, there's no illegal mining going on upstream. I made a post on X, and I said that Ghana was becoming a failed state. Because if you are a state with acute responsibility of all the four corners of your state, you should be able to deal with some of these things. And I have been struggling to understand why a country the size of Ghana, with us, the size of our armed forces, our police, our security services, how we've not been able to deal with this. I wonder what your own diagnosis is of this and why it has become so intractable. Now it's getting worse because 10 years ago, if we perhaps stamped our feet, we would have done something better. And then we just let it get worse and worse and worse. And now we are getting to the point where we just don't seem to find a way.
Yeah. I was listening to the former president Akufo-Addo when he was making his speech about putting his presidency on the line. And in that speech, he made a comment that says something about he being warned to stay clear of the issues of Galamsey. So in later years, when the fight failed, you then seem to think that the powers that seem to be more powerful than the presidency has finally found their way. And when the conversation about the repeal of the LI also came up, I think on Newsfile, the minister then makes a statement about mining firms who have invested billions of dollars to set up in these forest reserves. So then you start asking yourself questions about how powerful some of these multinationals are, or the hands that we do not see that may be controlling things behind the scenes. That is making our government incapable of dealing with such problems. If that is the case, I think Ghanaians need to understand that a bit more. But clearly, the political class obviously do not have the will to actually go ahead with this fight 100%. And the effects of it are dire. It is more than just a simple legal issue. It goes way, way beyond that. The human rights effects. We've had different reports and different research on issues like child trafficking and child slavery, even in some of these Galamsey-prone areas. You've had religious or sacred forests or rivers being depleted. The way of life of very quiet villages have suddenly changed. They begin to lose their way of life. And the effects are there for all to see. So the big question then is, why is the political class not that interested? Is it because they are unable to? And if so, why? Is there an invisible hand? I think that's a question for us to think about, but that seems to be the positioning that we're getting from our politicians.
The question I want to ask Christiana, because I started from Kala about whether this was a law problem. I went to Oliver, middle class problem, citizen problem, and then Calvin has spoken about the lack of the political will. So you listen to the president, Akufo-Addo, then say that he was going to put his presidency on the line. And we know that he did not put his presidency on the line because of all the things that happened subsequently. The NDC did make a big deal out of it in opposition. They've been in government for 4 months. Some have said it's still early days yet. We agree. Let's see what happens. But like the accounts will say, so you look at the political class and what they say about illegal mining, do you get a sense that these are guys who really, really, really want to fight this and perhaps are challenged, or they're just paying lip service, saying what they want on the radio and TV, and going back to dine with these same illegal miners?
Kwaku, exactly what you said. Because there's been laws implemented, there's been arrest, a whole lot of things have been done in this country to combat illegal mining. But we seem not to be getting a clear cut or how we are going to manage that. And this boils down to our political leaders. I would want to put Galamsey at the same size of cartels. There are so many players in Galamsey, if we want to talk about it. There are people who deal in guns. We have political leaders. We have people who sell drugs to them. We have people who do illegal fuels and all that. So if I am a politician, I have a concession, and then now I have to, there's the concession that is fueling my political activities and then my campaigns and all that. Do you think I would have the will to collapse that? No, because if I do, where am I going to get that money to fuel my political ambitions and all that? So I don't think that our politicians do not know that illegal mining is destroying our communities. It is destroying lives. They are aware of all those things. When I was coming here, I was actually watching documentaries on illegal mining, and then trust me, I cried. I was like, why are we doing this to ourselves? I lived in Obuasi for 4 years when back in the university, and there was this particular hostel I was living in, and we were using borehole water. Sometimes you will fetch the water, and then you will see when you put water in a tank, there's and it gets right. That's the kind of water we were using in Obuasi, trust me.
Yeah.
And the kind of smell that will come out of that water. You even put aqua taps and all that in one time. I kept about one strip in my water so that I would be able to bath. But trust me, it didn't do anything. So I don't think that our political leaders do not know that all these things are happening. They simply don't want to stop it because they are benefiting from it.
Right. Oliver, I'll come to you pretty shortly about, you are mobilizing again to hit the streets and to drive to, of course, hold other series of engagements to try and get more citizens involved in this fight. But Carla, just listening to Christiana talk about, this is anecdotal. She lived in a community where, of course, illegal mining is very rampant. Do you get a sense that the leaders have a sense of how bad the situation is? Because you've worked in the mining sector before, even the legal mining companies are struggling with legal miners because they are raiding their concessions. It's getting into gun conflicts here every now and then. We report that on the news. The politicians, do they have a sense of how bad the situation is? Or perhaps they feel like, Galamsey is there, but people are just talking. Or it's not just that acute.
I think the politicians know. Everybody knows. And have you ever seen a mine, a big mine from a big company? Mining by its nature is destructive, right? But it's just that when it's regulated, you can block off the level of destruction. A lot of I'm from Accra. Well, at least my mother is. I'm from Accra. So I'm not really from any other area, apart from when I visited. But a lot of the politicians are. Right? Which politicians are we talking about? MPs? A lot of the MPs are from the areas in which Galamsey is going on. They definitely know. But it's absolutely about money. It's about power. It's about votes. Right? Because there are a lot of people on the ground. I keep saying, let's not forget that there are people on the ground who are also benefiting, as well as the people higher up. People are always talking about the big people. Who are the big people? Who are the names? Because, we always say these vague things, but who exactly are they? And for me, I am 100% sure the politicians know. I believe there are a lot of politicians who are very, very, very committed in the fight. But I think that, again, it's a many-layered problem. Part of the problem is due to our past failures from decades past of ensuring that the people in those areas are doing well. Because then you leave them with no alternative but to do this, right? They have this wealth in the ground. You're not allowing them to benefit from it. All the money is being taken elsewhere, and they feel that they have no alternative. So our politicians know, everybody knows, the people on the ground knows, the people in Accra know, citizens know, everybody knows. But some of the knowledge that I would say that we don't have, for example, is our government even commissioning studies on the level of health harm being caused to the people in those areas. Sometimes you hear the Ghana Medical Association or stuff come out. But even the fact that considering we've been talking about it for years, has the government done a study? Are we really thinking about the consequences? We keep talking about the poisoned water, but there's so many other consequences. They know, and it's time for them to do something. But I think that they will only do something if they feel that enough people are behind them to ensure that they're going to keep winning elections when they crack down on it.
Right. Oliver, I want to ask you, this question about why you are going back to the streets, you are mobilizing. You can give us an update on how that is going, and also the sense you get why you still embark on that, despite all the troubles it brings to you personally. But also, I want to take your view on this new strategy by Muntaka Mubarak. Two legs. First, that police commanders in mining areas, that is the districts and regions, must be transferred, the commanders. And then also that if you engage in illegal mining and you're a foreigner, his proposal and the decision is that you should be deported and not prosecuted and put in jail here.
Let me even add a bit to that, because I want to talk a little bit about some of the conversations going on regarding this dichotomy that we create between legal and illegal mining. The problem is not a question of legality, it's a question of irresponsibility. And irresponsible mining stretches not only in terms of how we are irresponsible vis-a-vis the environment, but how we are socially irresponsible. And an element of social irresponsibility that we understate and don't talk about sufficiently is the point that Carla was making about looking at Obuasi and comparing to Johannesburg and other places. That's the original sin. And I don't like how we proceed in this conversation as if some of these big mining companies and themselves are not irresponsibly mining, or that the state has not created an avenue for them to be, co-op the space or be able to create these huge concessions, while people within those communities are themselves becoming poorer and poorer, for which reason the incentive to go and attack the environment doesn't exist as it exists currently. That is the conversation we need to have. The fact that so many people are making millions on the back of Ghanaian mines, whereas the communities themselves are poor, that is irresponsible mining, and that's Galamsey as well. So if we don't want to tackle that conversation because it's not convenient for us, because we treat these big mining companies as themselves being entitled to mine and do so at the expense of Ghanaian lives themselves, then we are not being holistic and fair in the conversation now. Secondly, and at this point was hinted at as well, the reason why LI 2462 continues to stay is the influence of big mining companies and not small-scale miners. They are the ones who are the big lobbies who are putting pressure on the government and the minister, and that's why they refuse to do something about this. They are the ones who have been knocking on the door of government to allow mining in forest reserves forever. They are the ones who were going after Itiwa forest before the outcry. So that conversation, if we want to be holistic, we have to be fair in terms of how we approach this. Now, why are we going back to the street? Listen, since last year, on behalf of 7 environmental organizations, some of the biggest environmental organizations in this country, my law firm has been leading them and challenging this issue in court and asking that there should be an injunction placed on LI 2462, that there should be a ban, or there should be an injunction placed on mining in forest reserves while we litigate the issue as to whether or not the government can mine in forest reserves. We have been in court since then till now. We haven't even been able to move the injunction application. One, first of all, because the process is not going anywhere. Two, the government has came to the court and claimed that LI 2462 had already been repealed and that we were there litigating a moot issue. And we've been waiting for a decision on that issue, which it's on radio. Everybody knows it's a lie. That is taking the court forever to then sit us down and give a ruling that no, the issue is not moot and we can go ahead and even move the injunction application. Anytime we try to engage the system.
Oh boy, I seem to have lost Oliver Bakavoma. But that is a very good time to try and get some messages. And then Oliver Bakavoma will be back to conclude that point. And then we will also get a lot of the views you guys have been sharing on social media and all that. But time to get some social media commentary. Before then, we'll come to Kala and the guys. Of you have been saying a lot about illegal mining. Galamsey was on Top Story. It's also on Ghana Connect. Michael Papaniashali joins me in studio with all that you've been saying on social media. Michael, people are angry. What are they talking about?
Well, let's start with Daniel from Kolebu, and he says that if these illegal miners are terrorist attackers, then the security agencies should shoot to kill when they meet them. This is, I'm guessing, is in response to what we heard from the security analyst on Top Story. This one also says that, well, I'm Giorgio and Tema, and I'm very disappointed in government. They talk too much about this Galamsey issue, and I don't know what our military men are doing if we can't fight this Galamsey. Well, the lands minister says we managed to reclaim a lot of those lands back. Now, this one says that from Achimota, Kwaku, this is where we should all miss the late President Rawlings. It would have taken just a radio comment, and this problem would be solved. This one also says the lack of political will to deal with a menace that is existential threat to our development and our well-being is simply an indictment of the bad political system we are practicing. Also, this one here is from Ajay Ado says, since 1960, DRC Congo had independence. They have no peace because of this illegal mining. Our politicians want to tell us they haven't seen or heard this. Do they want to destroy Ghana? What are the elites doing about this? Maybe you and your guests may be able to answer all these questions here. But a few more here. Final one from Francis says, it is becoming mind-boggling why JM can't go ahead to declare war at Galamsey. I think another demonstration should sit him down as we make a demand for the Galamsey fight to be handed over to the Ghana Armed Forces, or use our air drones and land and river military to deal with the issues.
Speaking about demonstrations, that is the point that Oliver Bakavoma was making, and he's back on to make that point. Oliver, you're making a point, then your line tripped. Hello, Oliver. Well, Oliver is speaking. I can sense from the Zoom, but I can't get him. But Oliver will fix that pretty short. Oliver, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Right.
Can you hear?
Please go.
Yes, I was saying that for somebody who believes in protest culture and mobilizing citizens to show indignation about things, I must say that at the end of the day, a protest is also a last resort mechanism. It's where citizens don't see how they can influence the policy process. They don't see how they can get the government to take something urgent and seriously, that we have to come to this. Listen, it's been 4 months. The kind of seriousness, we've seen the government being serious on other issues, that we think that if it was committed to this, a clearer roadmap towards this would have already been unveiled. And so for us, the reason we are mobilizing back into the streets is to a reminder to the government, not to say necessarily that the government has caused this problem, because I think we're quick to put every issue of the protest into the frame of did they cause it, and so why are we not giving them time? Maybe some of the things I've heard. That we are showing the government that we citizens are asking that this is a serious and important issue, and for which reason we are stepping out onto the streets. And for me, that reminder is important. I think Kala talked about getting the citizens behind the government. Well, if it needs a mandate from the streets to remind it that this is something that we are demanding a more pressing action on, then we are giving it to the government. We are marching in solidarity for the government to take more serious measures on this issue. So this is what this protest is going to be about. We are thinking about organizing this on the 1st of May, which is May Day. When you think about it, when there's a problem and you're calling for help, you shout Mayday, Mayday. What is a cry for help? And so on the 1st of May, we are going to step out and we are mobilizing towards that effect to shout Mayday on this Galamsey problem. And it's our hope that so many of us who often sit on the sidelines, would see that, no, this is beyond politics. This is beyond our daily bread and keeping conveniences of fraternizing with ministers that we love to do. Let's show up and be able to, hold government to the urgency of the problem that we are facing. And that's what this is going to be about.
Carla, there are those who are proposing a shoot-to-kill approach. Oliver has made a post on social media. He says, count him out. If you want to do shoot-to-kill, it's not something that he's interested in. He believes that there's still a way to deal with it. But there's still a lot of clamor for shoot-to-kill. And so if you go there, some say, okay, well, give illegal miners a moratorium. 1 week, leave the forest. If you come to the forest, we'll meet you after that. We shoot to kill you. That's not my position, but some people have canvassed that position. Where do you stand on that?
I think that, and understandably so, people just want it to end. So it's like, if we shoot them all, if you see them coming, shoot them. But no, it's not going to work because, as they say, right? So there is no, the problem is a very complex one. So let us not think that shooting to kill, which by the way is vigilante justice and is not a good thing. If you've heard about the former president of the Philippines who had a shoot to kill policy on drugs and who has recently been arrested by the International Criminal Court for those alleged crimes. What I do think is that we do have to put the force of security forces behind this, right? We do have to see it as a war. So obviously, if we have the political will and we are determined to clear those illegal miners and they're fighting back with weapons, because I do think it's a huge security threat, then they have to deal with them accordingly in terms of whether it is self-defense or using some level of reasonable force. I think that the shoot to kill, it's easy to say and it's even easy to do, but how many people are you going to kill? It will not solve the problem, but I understand where it's coming from. I think it's coming from of frustration, and we have to in addressing that, we have to see where the frustration is coming from. But Ghanaians, please, it's not about shoot to kill. It is about all of us coming together and realizing part of the problem is that gold mining that we have been mining for centuries, that has produced billions and billions in wealth for other nations and companies that are not Ghanaian, has not really benefited us. And the thing is that we have to make it benefit us as a whole. Not as it's happening now, where it is going into a relative handful of pockets, even amongst the illegal miners, right? And then destroying our country for the rest of us. We have to come together and make gold mining work for us. Because all Ghana's wealth, where has it gone? And we're still struggling. It should have benefited us.
Interesting, really interesting how we have all that much resources, particularly gold, with gold prices soaring all over the place, and we just still can't get it. Kelvin, where do you stand on this shoot to kill approach and all the talks?
Well, I wonder how we can go on a shoot to kill approach when we've just brought in water guards who do not have any any kind of protection. And you're thinking about it, the minister is talking about terrorism. Yes, if it's terrorism, then you may be going into such waters, right? So if he has elevated the conversation to that point, then obviously people would think that way, but definitely not the way to go, because then it's going to create a much bigger problem. However, I think the current solutions provided, especially the water guards, I seem to struggle to see how they are going to function effectively, especially in a space where you decide to do shoot to kill, right? Now, these water guards, again, I've had about a month of training, and they are going in there unarmed to go and deal with terrorists. You wonder how that kind of policy conversation went for them to get to the point and say, okay, we want to go out and then recruit 2,000 people for this purpose. And then you also wonder whether forest reserves are covered by these new water guards, because they're supposed to be water guards. The minister, I think, on Newsfile made a comment that the water guards will more or less play like a vigilante kind of role. And then when they see illegal miners, they call in the Navy, and then in 2 minutes, most likely the Navy is going to be there. But then you're asking questions, how realistic is that? And I think I was listening to Erasmus Asarodonko, and then he was talking about the ordeal he had to go through with illegal miners, and sometimes they seizing his equipment, his life being on the line. And then you're thinking about the safety of these young men who are going into this whole water guard situation. And again, I think giving the approach that government has taken with the water guards, still a lot to say there, but that approach doesn't, go hand in hand with a shoot to kill approach.
Christiana, what do you wish to see in the next few days to show some urgency in this fight?
Kwaku, I honestly want the government to come out, give us a clear cut, a roadmap on how they intend to fight this galamsey. We are in a deep trouble as a country, but it seems we are not seeing it, and it's really troubling. So all that I'm looking forward for the government to do is to give us a roadmap. This and this and this is what government is going to put in place to solve all these issues. And to add up to what Kelvin just said, the water guards thing, I honestly do not know how realistic,
you have illegal miners who are armed to the teeth, and then you have some water guards wearing Adidas sweatpants and white shirts.
Exactly. We have
they don't
people,
even have sticks.
We have people coming outside our country to come and guard for forest for people to mine in, where they are having serious weapons and all that. You bringing these soft guys there, calling them water guards to go in. What are they going to do? So government should be very serious and strategic on what they want to do. Else, we are not seeing what they are doing.
Great. Oliver, you started us off. I want to give you the last word. What would you wish to see? What will signal some seriousness in this fight against illegal mining?
So I think one of the big things is the absence of policy coordination, more generally. We know, and I think one of the things that I was supposed to answer even was, the discussion about the interior minister who was suggesting that, they have to transfer police officers, and I called it a brilliant idea. Only for two reasons. One, if we are creating analogies between that and some of the drug fights, we would realize that a lot of times low-level officials and police officials in some of these regions often tend to be the quick to corrupt. But if you don't look at the corruption question even, you have to treat galamsey in these areas as a KPI issue. So if they are primary law enforcement agencies on the ground there, they are failed on it, then it requires that they be held responsible and accountable for, and other people are rotated in to deal with. But a big thing forward is policy coordination. We have to be able to get a clear sense of what is the coordination between the Lands Minister, Interior, and Defense on this issue. We have to be able to see a level of seriousness. I've called for the President to address the nation on this. That sort of address, outlining the government policy, would show seriousness from the top level down. And then people give a clear roadmap by which we can assess the government on. That, I think, is what is missing, and people need to get a sense of. Sadly, some of the initial gestures, like this laughable water guard idea, has tainted people's views as to whether or not the government is serious on this even. So you have the presidency give us an address on the issue, lay out the clear roadmap, have the key ministers behind him, Lands, Interior, Defense, and even local government. And we then understand that, listen, there's an all hands on deck approach to this conversation, and we can trust in the way forward.
Great. Very interesting thoughts, and that's how we bring the show to an end today. It's the galamsey issue is a big issue. For me, we are getting to a place where we may be called a failed country if you can't deal with galamsey. But, well, this is Ghana. Street lights are not even working. So when it comes to some of these big issues, it's always a challenge. Thank you always, Oliver Bakavomo, as always, for sharing your evening with us. Carla Olympio, always a delight having you on. And Christiana also made her debut. And Christiana, thank you very much for coming on. And then Calvin Jima also making your debut. We look forward to having you come on as many times as possible. Newsfile is on Joy News tomorrow at 9 a.m. till 12 noon. It will also be here on Joy 99.7 FM. Up next is Andy Dusty with The Library. My name is Kwaku Asante. As always, I'll see you again, same time next week.
Very happy that Attorney General is taking the necessary step to try to reconstitute the